Hello everybody, this is the breakdown episode for the latest short that's been released on the channel, Lift Free. This is going to be long form, me kind of discussing my thought process, the techniques behind the actual short film, some takeaway notes that I had, and then some things that you might be interested in or could apply to your own filmmaking process for yourself in future projects. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. Excellent. Alright, so some technical notes that I made for myself in preparation for this video. First off, camera. We filmed this on a Sony a7S III and a DJI Mavic Air 2 for aerial shots for the introduction. Secondly, we filmed this in 2 aspect ratios, widescreen and 16:9. I do a breakdown of what different aspect ratios can be used commonly in the films that we see, but for this example, I'll just do the bars, widescreen, 16:9. Fantastic. All right, frame rate. We filmed this consistently at 24 frames, or more specifically 23.976. If you want to get really nitpicky about it, don't worry. Don't. You sound annoying if you do. All right, then editing program. We edited this in Adobe Premiere Pro. For the making of this film, my thought process going into it was that I never really filmed like these immense exertions of physicality before. So I needed to get some reference footage and some reference thought processes. And so I'm gonna give credit where credit's due to some references that I found in the research and development of this short film. So I'm gonna toss them up right here for you to view, but also I'll just verbally say them. Dan Hardy's Breakdown Show, he does this excellent breakdown of mixed martial arts, of the philosophies of fighting, the way that he goes about it's very similar to kind of this style that I've adopted for myself in a way to communicate directly with you. The kind of channel and media group Full Reptile, they do these excellent videographies and mini documentary series about fighters, about gyms, about development of mixed martial arts individuals. The work of Terrence Whitman and his work with Justin Gagey and his Road to Gold and Road to the Cage series that just happened recently has been an excellent source of reference and research for myself and how to film, how to pace this kind of work. The film that I'm making is about 2 minutes long, and there's a reason for that. We'll get into that in a second. Then also, out of nowhere, there was this group, Block Asset, who made this really interesting micro documentary series about a fighter named Khamzat Chimaev and Darren Till as they were preparing and going through their camps and preparing for a mixed martial arts event. They're really interesting to watch, very different than other products that they have kind of on this site, and it was just an interesting reference for myself. So yeah, those are just some helpful things that you might be interested in should you do research for your own right. All right, so in preparing the film for this project, I had some objectives in mind. I just mentioned before, not filming with massive amounts of exertion on screen before and that level of intensity. Like my prior work had been with ballet dancers who are very oftentimes flowing and ebbing, and there's very much a rhythm to them. And there is also rhythm to fighters and lifters I found as well, which I find really appealing. It just comes out differently, and I think it should or can be filmed differently. And so this is me trying to explore that idea. Secondly, keeping the idea of working in small teams going. My last film I filmed with a team of 3 people, and this time I filmed another team of 3 people. Different teams, different methods of communication, and that was very, very valuable. And then I think finally, introducing and maintaining narrative in the actual core of the film. It's one of my core values, is introducing narrative into everything that I do. Narrative is how I connect with media that I watch, and so I want to include it into the media that I create. But also, the way this film is broken down, I made it so that you don't need it necessarily, where it can essentially be cut off at the 1 minute mark, and then that second minute can be repurposed entirely for platforms like YouTube Shorts or Instagram, something like that. So I wanted to be versatile in its runtime. And so let's begin by introducing our characters. So we have now met our 2 characters. And they're in different scenarios, and I also have them going in different directions. Typically in films, your protagonist moves from the left side of your eye to the right side of your eye, and your antagonist moves from right side to left side. It has to do this kind of subtle psychology thing oftentimes, but also that idea has been maintained in my mind, and so I introduced Miles as like kind of the clean sheet hero that brings our kind of Dark Knight Greg into the scene through the communications they're about to have. So the scene that I have where Greg is running along the ridge line and then the text is above him, this is one of the actual first times I've really storyboarded in previs for a project of mine. In this previs, I will show it right now, but also in this previs, I experimented with the pacing of walking versus running, with the look of the scene, with how the sky needs to be, and made it really helpful on the day of shooting where I felt confident that I could make the shot that I need to make and it would still look good and look how I envisioned it too, so knowing I would transfer cleanly onto my edit. Oh yeah, and then another little thing, world audio. It was very windy outside, it was very loud in the car, and it was also very loud in the gym we're about to shoot at. And I ultimately decided, you know what, early out the gate, I'm just going to remove all of the natural audio and just dub the whole thing. I would say it's rather obvious, but it's also provides a nice clean layout for the kind of the world to be built on, with running steps, with breathing, with engines, with the car engine, that sort of thing. That way you're hearing just what we need to hear and what is essential to the actual beats of the story. Oh yeah, another little challenge I want to set for myself. Typically I'll film in 2 ways. I guess technically 3 ways, but 2 ways on the ground. The first way being fixed positions, fixed camera positions, and then the second being on a gimbal or a glide cam. Both provide either fixed locked off motion or a smooth, almost dreamlike motion that I really enjoy seeing in films, but I wanted to challenge myself with kind of gritty nature of the short I was making to shoot almost exclusively handheld. And so with that, I shot with a little Tilta camera cage that was meant for the Sony a7S III. Delightful little system that I have with a carrying handle and whatnot. And it made the whole shooting process really easy, but also enabled me to shoot these kind of focused, deliberate shots where things could be in the moment and you almost felt, a little bit more of that built-in adrenaline into the actual frame itself. So now we meet our venue. We're setting the scene for the second act of this film, the inciting incident as has just happened. The gym Lift for Your Die, located in New Hampshire, Dover, New Hampshire. Excellent location, the staff there are excellent, the facilities are great, and they were very kind in letting me use this venue. So now we have that over-the-shoulder 3/4 hero look that Greg gives. Extremely dramatic, but it's fun. And goodness me, do I love a little bit of fun. I also love drama. And then phones and text. When you have a phone out, where do you track or attach your text? You could have it fixed, floating in the scene, as so, or you could have it tracked to a bit of hand, and it moves with the hand, or with the person, or however you might like it to be. Like, there's no rules for it. I like to track my text to the actual device it's being read from. It creates almost like a direct connection with what's being done. And then for a long time, I wondered, how am I going to set this actual engagement, inciting incident with his reply? I could have him texting back. I could have him, saying something. I could just have him go into the gym, and that's the answer. And so I wanted to kind of close out the first act with this macro shot of the field we were running in. Also then kind of showing the sky answer of him being like, yes, absolutely, I will do this. I will work out with you and it'll be my pleasure. And then we get into the copyrighted NF song that will partially block this video in most nations, but that's okay because most people watching this are probably in the US. If you haven't seen the video and this is your first time watching it, well then you can watch it without any NF song. I'm also probably going to rework this video as well with something that's like copyright free, just because there's so much footage that I captured. But that's down the line. Alright, so now we get to more working out. We get to him applying the weights. Again, this is with more of that dubbed audio. There was other people who were working on the gym and we tried our best not to disturb them, but there's other music going on, other voices, other noise, and for wanting a clean kind of audio scape, I just replaced all of it with my own stock audio that I gathered. And so then I'm trying to go through the scenes with him or them prepping to to work out, to like with the jump rope, with the weights, things that will be shown later on in the short, and kind of setting the scene for them actually being put in place early on. And then there was also a point of like, how does this thing get paced? Like, I can honestly pace it with the beats, with every single beat, every beat that I choose, and on that beat there's going to be a cut, and that's an easy way to go about it. You can do it verbally. There's no hard and fast rules for when to cut. Oftentimes people like to cut on motion or like on an action of something, like a bag gets tossed to you, and then as you catch the bag, that's when you cut. And then there's also, actually I'll get to the point about the also towards the end of this. So kind of showing that exertion, showing them working together. That was the point I wanted to establish early on, that they work together. Because this is the whole point of them communicating with each other. So showcasing that shot of them doing a dumbbell bench press and then some curls in the same shot establishes they're in the same geometry of space. Alright, so then there's kind of gets into my first little montage build shot. I try to shoot every action in at least 2 angles. This was important to me. One of my goals of being able to establish different takes on something. That way I have more options in the editing room. Then I also have a better understanding of the weight that's being moved, the effort that's being put in. There's kind of a better look at the actual visuals of the character. And so this shot with him going to do the weighted chin-ups, wanting to establish the belt, the weights, how much weight, how does the weight get put on him, but also not being so cumbersome with time that you get bored watching him suit up. So then jump ropes, similar thing, where I did about 3 takes for the jump ropes. One looking at his head, one looking at his hands, then one watching his feet. And that way they would give me enough coverage that I could shoot the whole thing. And then switch between the shots as needed. The guy from another who was no relation to us, but working in the background, got into the shot. Love it. Delightful individual. Also showing how much weight is being used. There's an initial shot of him pulling on the cable, and then I realized early on I have a cut of it where he's just pulling and I move off to something else. But I wanted to showcase like, okay, what is the effort that's being put in, like kind of like in an anime, like how many kilotons or earths are you moving? Like when you see Superman is moving a tank, well the tank has an established weight. There's no weight established to that effort. It's a very abstract idea that I didn't really want to create. So I decided to ground it in weight that was being moved. So there's another shot of him doing weights from over the shoulder, weights in front, or me looking into the mirror so I can see his face, and then weights looking back, and then you can see kind of the effort that's being done as he continues lifting. Like a sequence like that can be taken on for a long time, but I decided to do in just 3 shots over the course of like 4 seconds. And then the the weighted lunges. So the weighted lunges, they look fine, but also establishing the weight on the bar earlier maybe creates a little bit of that memory callback when you see it happening, or it doesn't. Maybe that's just me, who knows. And wanting to end it with a little connection they had before. They start this thing, texting together, working out together, they end it, fist bumping together, which is a nice little feeling that actually Greg gave to me of wanting to put one of those connections at the very end, and I thank him very much for it. Feedback from your peers is very helpful. And then I think I'm wanting to end it as I kind of began with Greg and Miles kind of out in the end, showing the time of day, the dedication, having the continuation of the day. That was a nice little touch. And so we end it with fading onto the moving graphic logo that I made, going out into a Gaussian blur, back into normal focus, I guess you could say. Yeah, and so that's the video. It's really short, it's quite to the point, and then explores an idea that I haven't really looked at before. But I think the biggest thing I want to kind of look at in my own thought process of making this film was something I struggled with in the second act of making the short film, is color grading and tone. How do we establish tone in the look of a scene, and when does that tell the audience? And so to me, there's an infinite number of tones that could have been made for this film. The song could have been different. The aspect ratio, the color grading, the way highlights are played with, the way it was exposed. All those things are variables that can be done afterwards to completely change the meaning of a film. It could have been a black and white noir piece. It could have been this Creed-esque widescreen style montage where everything is nice and perfectly focused. Nothing's blown out light-wise. It's blues and it's oranges, again, kind of like in this room here. Oh no. And so, how does one kind of go about establishing tone? And so the look that I kind of ended up with was often kind of inspired and referenced by Terrence Whitman's work with Gagey, where he uses a lot of gold and kind of, golds and blues in the piece. And so that was kind of a tone that I looked to continue on with. So when you're going about your own kind of visual storytelling journey, what kind of tone are you creating? And is it the one that you might be pursuing? You'll see an infinite amount of possibilities for tone, and that's okay. Letting things be and picking something and just going with it is okay. I think one thing I wanted to pass on is that a visual project or any kind of project involving art is never actually done. We just decide to leave it at some point and then move on to the next thing. And so, I'm very proud of this piece, very happy with how it came out, and I was very blessed to work with the team that I got to work with. Excellent individuals. And so now we get to move on to the next piece. So thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for bearing with me through it. Be safe, and I will see you in the next one.